Hey everybody, we are back. I am Clinton Bonner, VP of Marketing at Topcoder. I am with Soofi Safavi. I'm here with Soofi. He's the CEO and founder of Wizard.fit. And what I'd like everybody to do is, if you're coming across this for the first time, we're going to link to the previous part one that we had, which was kind of describing what's happening at Wizard.fit, why Soofi is deciding to bring a brand new application to market, what's happened to some of his friends and the people that work inside the fitness industry, and with the idea that he had, how quickly he's accelerating that through the on-demand platform that is Topcoder that we talked about last time too, Soofi, that you're pretty darn familiar and have been wielding Topcoder for quite a while. And just to set the stage for all the listeners out there, last time we chatted was Friday, March 20th. It's a couple days later. It's now Tuesday, March 24th. And I think it'd be really cool to, ask how the weekend was for you and just to kind of get an overall, a quick update or a kind of a game plan viewpoint of how the project is going so far and how the last couple of days since we last chatted.
Since we had a conversation with the team, which actually consists of a couple of Copilots, one helping us with the design, the other one he's actually helping out with the build. Originally, we were planning to do kind of the leverage the challenge platform, but kind of going through the plan, their recommendation was maybe we go a little bit more kind of direct to the talent pool that we have to be able to kind of cut the time. We confirmed the plan Saturday morning with the target go live of first week of April, which actually is pretty amazing. Yeah. And while we were kind of trying to confirm the plan, I think by Sunday we had 2-3 of the early tasks already done. So we basically build the backend component that create the classes and basically a schedule and capture the trainer and the trainee information. Monday we actually end up having the first phase of the front end finished. Today, the designers actually gave us the first draft of the design for the MVP, and we've been going over Slack the question and answers. I think initially the amount of requirements, probably I provided 10-15 bullet points of this is how the feature is gonna come together. The team kind of took that back, came with a whole bunch of clarifying questions. Some of them I never thought about, so they were good questions. I just had to kind of think a little bit. So we are moving forward. The team suggested and offered to help out to kind of set up the infrastructure. So they set up the GitLab. We're gonna host the first MVP on the Heroku platform, which is actually kind of simplify it, and then long term we can figure out what's basically the pivot points are. In addition to that, to be able to make sure that I get ready if this thing is truly solving the problem, I have engaged a marketing team that it's going to actually help out with reaching out to the trainers and be able to actually give newsletters. We're going to record basically a YouTube video tomorrow morning at 9 with 2 trainers that we call them the Alpha Wizards. They're the first ones that they're going to actually join the platform to start communicating, because while the MVP is going to leverage some of the tools that is already out there, like Zoom and PayPal. The industry and some of my friends, they proactively started having some of the Zoom sessions, obviously a little bit open, a little bit kind of not integrated, which the first version of Wizard.fit is trying to solve. But the key right now, most important thing, is to be able to actually bring the experience in the physical studio and gym as close as possible to the trainee's living room. And that requires a little bit of a instruction in addition to technical improvement to be able to actually get the trainees to figure out how to set up their cameras, what's actually for each training style, how to actually position themselves so they can get maximum benefit of engagement of the trainer and the corrections that they can do.
Awesome. Really, really cool update there. And so I just want to recap for folks that are following along now. So again, so the work kind of truly began, I would say, last Thursday? Is that fair? Like 3/19? Yeah. So 3/19, the real work, technology build started kicking off. So we're talking, 5 days, 4.5 days later now on Tuesday, and you already have elements up in Heroku. Today I saw some front end UI UX designs over in Marvel. So I think two cool things to talk about, to share with the folks that are following along, are kind of the technologies powering the collaboration. That's like one thing that I think is pretty interesting, and then the technologies that you're choosing to use inside Wizard.fit. I think those are really interesting too. So starting with the kind of the collaboration of, you're working with a remote workforce. You've chosen Topcoder. You worked with us before. We are on-demand virtual talent, and you mentioned, standing up this in GitHub, and then getting kind of a simplified first look inside Heroku, and in parallel getting some UI UX done by a really great designer, and we're using the Marvel app there, which is kind of like the faux prototyping, where you can take the PSDs and throw them in and give a really beautiful versioning of what the app would look like. Can you give a little bit of color on each of those technologies, and kind of just, when you're sitting there as the entrepreneur who really wants to go fast, what do they allow for you to do when it comes to collaborating with with what is, a remote team that you're working with at Topcoder?
Yeah, definitely. So I think the beginning or initiation of the collaboration happens with basically two tools. One is the Connect platform, which is actually a Topcoder. That's where we kind of instantiate the requirements, the updates. For more immediate feedback and conversation, we are actually using Slack. The team created a channel. All of us, we joined. There were a couple of additional people I asked that they actually got in. Our initial conversation over the Slack phone conversation was with one of the co-pilots. I think he's the other side of the hemisphere. It's just, and we leveraged that very quickly. The good thing was actually he was the co-pilot that I knew from before, so it was kind of exciting to have him back on. We just kind of talk for a couple of minutes, talk about the old project.
So we can that's Mithun. We can give Mithun some love. So Mithun's been a long time Topcoder. He's a fantastic co-pilot. And again, we hit on the co-pilots last time a little bit. Co-pilots are members of our community who have elevated their knowledge of operating Topcoder. So now that they've gained this kind of knowledge and trust from customers, they actually PM work virtually on the platform. And Mithun is one of our standout co-pilots. Does a great job. So always love giving some credit where due back to the members, because they are Topcoders, so which is great. So didn't mean to cut you off, but I always love giving folks like Mithun. Yeah, for sure.
So those are kind of the tools, the kind of the management tools that it's basically it was utilized. Then, as you mentioned, very quickly we started establishing some code bases in GitLab. Very quickly, I was set up so I can actually review the code. If there is anything technically I can contribute and help out, I'll help out. So very good collaboration there. And then set up the Heroku account again. I got access to it, and the first link was up on, I think, yesterday, that we had the some of the functionality already live, and the wireframes and the screens that was designed in Marvel, we got access to that. I send that link to basically to the marketing team. I send it to the trainers to start collecting feedback. And again, not only the team that is building out is distributed, the customer base is distributed. I'm basically don't have physically access to any of those guys considering the current situation. So the collaboration mechanism that it's there, it allows for basically the whole ecosystem to be distributed, and at the same time with the high level of velocity to actually get the code moving. Our plan going forward is we gonna we are building that as a web app, which basically which allows us to go fast, so we don't have to deal with some of the constraints and the backlog of the 2 weeks of the app store and all that other good stuff. But we have chosen the technology that allows us to be able to extend the web app kind of quickly into a more native structure and put it on the app store. We started talking about the kind of the future now that actually we had this great progress. There are plenty of features that actually we started adding up in the backlog, and hopefully in the future phases to show. And moving to the app store is one of the building blocks, because then it allows us to be able to actually integrate with the Apple Watch. And while the trainees they're going, the trainer can see in the corner of the screen, are they working hard, what's their heart rate is. So there's a lot of possibilities that I think not only we're going to achieve the very close experience of the physical studio, I think very quickly we're going to basically past that by having all these additional technology features that the team is going to integrate to be able to kind of even make the engagement a lot more pleasant and a lot more effective.
No, I love it. And I think there's so many good lessons here for folks who, maybe work traditionally in the enterprise and are used to a certain pace, but the pace that you're able to go at, and the grip of the tools that it takes to kind of put together in the mixing bowl, if you will, to say, hey, we can go at a higher velocity if we just have, sincerely great communications, the right tools, and of course, access to talent that can help you get things done. I love the addition of bringing in marketers and other distributed people to start planning out other phases and feedback, and just getting those parts of it ready too, because it's like a holistic machine. It's not just, all parts have to hum for this to go off the way that you want it to, in the speed that you want it to happen. So I think that's really cool. And I think a great transition for the folks that are following along is remembering that, Wizard.fit is born during the coronavirus pandemic in COVID-19, where lots of folks that that are trainers that you respect, that train in what are like high intensity moments in terms of really having to pay attention to your students if you are the fitness instructor, so you could do course correction and really guide them along in form intensive workouts. And you notice that, hey, just by taking a one-to-many class on Zoom or Facebook Live, so much of the experience was lost, and a lot of your people were losing their jobs suddenly. They just were suddenly unemployed, or just suddenly didn't have gigs that would pay their bills. Their classes were gone because they were dependent on a physical location. So I want to make sure we bring that back for the people. And then the segue for me is, we talked about the technology that you're using to collaborate, some of which on the Topcoder platform, and then external communication tools that are helping you go faster. You are marching towards an MVP, and that's doing a couple of key things. That's handling scheduling, it's handling payment, and it's handling, of course, the telepresence, if you will, through video conferencing, and the ability for folks to really zoom in and focus on like a student at a time and correct form factor. Can you give the folks who are following along some of the color into which technology you chose and why did you choose them, in terms of whether that's scheduling, whether that's payments, and then kind of a video conferencing choice you had to make?
Definitely. So on the scheduling side, it's actually it was fairly the simple functionality. So the team built that. Creating the class, somebody booking the class, basically some of the kind of metadata that goes with creating the class, maybe a logo, maybe some description about the class, the timing aspect of it, to just say, okay, now this class is live, and somebody be able to actually say, okay, I'm gonna start the class. So the scheduling, the basically native the Angular code that we build with actually some non-SQL backend that allows us to eventually kind of pivot to maybe more effective serverless environments on AWS, but right now we're going to operate on the Heroku side. From a payment perspective, we did a very quick research with the help of Mithun, and we basically picked the PayPal the platform. They had a very good, simple, effective API that kind of both from a security perspective, it put us out of the business of handling credit cards, which at this point it's basically is a non-starter. All the infrastructure that is needed, and they kind of handle that. And then it had variety of actually access points. Even I think now Venmo protocol is available and actually on the PayPal. So that was an easy choice. From a video conferencing, I think the move that Zoom made right before basically beginning of this, by opening up their platform pretty much free. You don't need to actually get an enterprise. It gives us a very good first step. We're gonna leverage their open API that they have, because ultimately we want to change the nature of, while the visual interaction matters, we need to pivot a little bit away from this is a conference call versus this is a class. That means they have to be a set of control around it. One of the things that with one of the trainers we were debating today, it says, what if somebody doesn't want to be on camera? And my answer to that is, when you're in a physical class, you have no control who's going to put their mat next to you. We are mimicking the physical experience, and you have to actually be cognizant of that. Obviously, in the future, we're going to have different user personas that we're gonna build and expand. Somebody who doesn't want to be in on camera, somebody who wants to actually record it and just do it later, all that other stuff. It's going to be outside of the kind of scope of MVP. But I think Zoom and what they've done in terms of kind of opening that up, it gives us a avenue forward, so we don't have to solve the streaming and some of these complex problem. And as a result, the timeline is intense in addition to the velocity. I grew up in the enterprises and worked for big banks. The scope of functionality that we are actually putting together, it would have been a 12-month project, from kind of initiation to technology selection to team selection to build an organization, the project management, and we are actually pulling it together in less than 3 weeks. So amazing speed, and I think that ultimately that's going to become the differentiator in the future technology. I don't think it's that important to have the most amazing and actually noble idea. I think the winners of actually in the technology are the ones that they can go as fast as what we are going and be able to pick a problem, solve it, fail, fast forward. If that doesn't work, pivot and another one, and just try, iteratively to be able to actually solve some of these problems. So while this is a very devastating time for the community that we are targeting, I think you see the glimpse of hope in the trainers' the eyes and the people that you talk to, that we get so excited, and then in the back of our heads it's a little bit of a duality in our emotions, because this is a devastating time, but that's what this platform and what technology help us to be able to not kind of sit down and feel sorry for ourselves that we ultimately lost our income, and what are we going to do is to just very quickly pivot and find another avenue. Today I was part of a Zoom session with one of our kind of alpha wizards. 17 people, they joined hard. Some of them, they made a mistake on set up the camera, but everybody's willing. Everybody wants to stay healthy. They want to actually kind of weather the storm. So I think we are very excited that this thing, it's going to actually ultimately at least bring some energy, some blood, some oxygen to the vein of this community, and hopefully this replicate itself in other industries. This is the one that I was close, and actually I decided to kind of do this with the help of the team. I'm pretty sure that the same movements and the pockets of energy exist in other industries, restaurant, or anybody who's actually impacted by the virus.
Yeah, and I suspect you're right too. And a couple of things come up for me while you were kind of sharing the story there too. The first one is that, it's that beautiful moment when Zoom did decide to open up what was an enterprise level package, and said, okay, for now, go at it, have at it, and if you could use it and make your life better, so be it. I don't want to say it's an unintended consequence. It just is what happens when you open things up like this. entrepreneurs and innovators see an opportunity and an opening and say, I could do something with that. And then all of a sudden some new value is added on top of an existing platform that for enterprises, like, there's probably blinders on in how you use it. It is for video conferencing and things like that, and maybe some internal webinars and stuff like that. And all of a sudden they open it much wider to everybody, and now everybody can bring their ball and come play on top of the Zoom platform. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're building out this brand new experience.
A while back, maybe 5-6 years ago, Eric Schmidt in Berlin, one of the technology conversations, he made 2 points. One was about our future, that actually they're going to eliminate certain verbs. You're never going to be able to actually say I got lost. Just like with the GPS and the maps, it's just like that verb, it's going to be eliminated. But another point that actually you touched on, which was kind of amazing, it says our economy is switching from the economy of scarcity to actually the economy of abundance, which is openness is a competitive advantage. Before it was, I have this idea, I'm gonna close it, I'm gonna milk it for actually eternity, and that's how I'm gonna become successful. What you just talked about is openness is ultimately create so much innovation and wealth and actually creativity that at the end of the day, it's gonna actually hands down beat the closed system, and actually the system that is based on just kind of in the concrete walls when there is an idea and actually good platform.
Yeah, the old command and control like mentality, like ivory tower, like keeping all that IP locked away, versus a much more horizontal play where you open it up to folks who can innovate on top of your platform. And of course, we've been seeing that for quite a while now, for over a decade, with just the mobile phone becoming what it is, and then how predominant it is in our lives, and APIs being at the center of that. And I think what you're doing with Zoom is just a great example of that. And kudos to Zoom for seeing it and saying, we're going to open it up. And then kudos to entrepreneurs and innovators like yourself to say, I can use this differently and bring something new to market with it, which is really cool. And I do remember the other piece I wanted to kind of just hit on is that I think the discussion we're having, and really what you're providing to folks who are watching, is really kind of a masterclass in the future of work. Just a lot of content around the future of work. They tend to talk about like things like employee retention and employee upskilling, and surviving or mashing up your labor in the era of AI and automation. Those are all fine. Those are all good things to talk about, and I do think they contribute to the future of work. But the scene missing for me is that what you're discussing is, hey, this is a brand new way to do the work. Like, individuals, small teams can go at hyper accelerated paces because of platforms, because of access to talent, and just an overall erosion of what has been traditional barriers. So you can just go a heck of a lot faster, and like you said, pivot when you have to. And it's not about holding on to that idea and trying to squeeze it forever. It's about getting there a heck of a lot faster than anybody imagined they could even 2, 3, 5 years ago. Because maybe you're inside a large enterprise, but don't you want people inside your large enterprise acting as if they are, empowered to do what you're doing? What's the difference? Like, if, as long as you set them up for success and give them the tools and say, you're allowed to go experiment in this way. In fact, you're encouraged to go create and innovate and experiment with this kind of velocity. It would be like a shock to the system in a good way. I feel like if more enterprises adopted that and gave it to their best and brightest and said, hey, you now have a brand new way to go collaborate with anybody across the world that you want to. Here are the tools, here are the kind of guidelines and rules, and here's some funding. Go figure it out, go innovate with us,
Definitely. Well said.
All right, let's wrap up part 2 for today. So this is a great conversation. We're going to talk, I think we're scheduled to talk, Friday this week. Is that right, Soofi?
Yeah.
So we'll check in about 3 more days. At that point, we're looking to see, again, a bit of a progress update, but really looking at seeing where are we in terms of the MVP, how far along are we? And at that point, we'll be, I think, 8 full days into the build and design. So we'll do a check back in there as well. We're going to start showing some elements of the Topcoder platform. We're going to start showing some of the Heroku elements, some of the designs that are sitting on Marble, and the tools we talked about earlier too. And we'll continue to do that. We'll bring We'll bring it as near real time to the world as we possibly can, so you can see what it's like kind of sitting next to, kind of riding shotgun with you, Soofi. And, you know, from your brain to out to platforms to get this stuff done, we'll let people ride shotgun with you, and we'll bring them along and show them what you're doing. And we'll cover more of that in part 3.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You got it. Have a good night. Thank you.